Okay, well, hi everyone, and thank you very much for watching or listening, everybody around the world. Liam Hartery here, joining you again from sunny Cyprus with episode 452 of the Simply Inspired podcast. Today, joined by a very, very special guest joining us from Florida, Mr. Vernon Ervin, who is, of course, a legendary bodybuilder. Needs no introduction from me, but I'm going to give one anyway because this man won the 2018 Masters National Overall Champion. But as well as his bodybuilding achievements, this man today is just pure inspiration, always taking the time to give back, contribute, and share advice and lessons, life lessons with his following, and also today with all of you watching and listening this. So today we're going to be finding out more about the bodybuilding journey, what he does outside of that, what separates the best from the rest, and some practical lessons that you guys can actually use and take in your daily lives. And Vernon, my friend, thank you so much for taking time
Sure,
on your morning. Absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
absolutely. Again, Liam, thank you very much for having me. Just to let everyone know, yes, I am Vernon Ervin. I have to be a professional bodybuilder, but also, I think I don't like to be. I don't define myself as a bodybuilder. I define myself as an example, and what I mean by that is, you know, when people see bodybuilders, there's a little bit of intimidation there. And when people see people who are in the fitness industry, there's a little bit of arrogance there. And I look at bodybuilding as a teachable moment, as a conversation starter, right? So when people talk to me about bodybuilding, to me, it's an opening to get to know people. It's an opening get to them to have a better understanding about the sport that we're a part of, and they even to validate some of their angst or some of the negatives that they think about body. Because I'm not one that's going to sit on here and tell you how great bodybuilding is. Bodybuilding has killed a lot of our athletes. Bodybuilding has uh, destroyed families because of what you have to do to be at the top. But also, bodybuilding has given a lot of positive things, improved self esteem. Um, the ability to live a healthier life and just be an as healthier an example for people around you, a way to earn a secondary living or a great primary living if you're good enough. So there's a lot of pros and cons. So I'm not coming to this conversation uh, saying how great this sport I am. I'm going to talk to the people today about the realization of what goes on, how we function in this sport, but mainly how do we utilize this sport to spread goodness throughout? How do we help people stay informed about better health, not just on the nutritional side, but on the mental side? Because you don't know how many bodybuilders look great, but mentally they're destroyed. And so, there's a lot of things that I think we can unwrap here today. And I know we have a just a short period of time, so I'm looking forward to it. And again, I'm very pleasured, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity for this platform.
Wow, you have a very eloquent way with words, my friend, and pure inspiration right there as well. Couple of things. First of all, I appreciate you contextualizing that a lot, by the way, not only with the sport of bodybuilding itself, but also with yourself individually. Because,
Mhm.
funnily enough, I always say that to people. I do always actually say when we get into it, usually, that, you're not defined by your achievements, no one is, and there's many facets that make us who we are. And
Sure.
you'll have many sides of your personality. We'll be able to focus on one or two, but I'm really glad that you've kind of humanized that as well, because I do also feel with bodybuilding that a lot of people look at it and think of people like yourself as being something other than human. I do mean that, and I mean that as a compliment in many ways, but there, as you say, there are pros and cons. Anyway, getting back to some of the topics, and there's a few things that you mentioned there. I would like to touch very briefly on your beginnings in the sport. Now, just to be clear,
Sure.
I'm not going to necessarily walk through, this happened and then this happened, this happened. I mean, I'm hoping we
No,
can kind of move around a little bit, but still, I think it's valuable. People see where you are today, but obviously they don't necessarily see where you came from. So I would like to touch on that briefly, if that's possible, please. Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm originally from California, and so I started bodybuilding, and this is funny, because I wasn't going to get any taller. I'm only 5'5". Okay, so my uncle said you can get bigger, you're not going to get any taller, right? And so, I've always been a fan of the old school bodybuilders, the Chris Dickerson, Muhammad Makawi, Frank Zane, and those. And so I patterned my physique after that. So as a young bodybuilder, I started competing first in the military. I was in the Army for quite a while, and I started competing in shows on military bases, and I just fell in love with the sport. And from there, I never wanted to be an IFBB bodybuilder. And this is just a true story. I was very successful on the local, regional, and state level. I've won 4 overall titles, all weighing under 172 pounds. And that's because I focused on conditioning, symmetry, and proportion. And say this, and I said that just to preface what I was saying earlier about not wanting to be a bodybuilder, because they became so big that's not what I wanted for my life. I love the way I look in suits. We didn't discuss this, but my other life, I'm a sales executive, a VP of sales, and now a director. So, I wore a lot of hats and I knew what I wanted, but I also always had this love for bodybuilding. So I never stopped. I just didn't pursue a pro card. And then when the classic physique division came, I said, well, I can do that because I didn't have to be what I call blown out, right? And here's another personal reason I didn't want to be blown out, because I felt like bodybuilders always look sick at the end of their career. You used to looking like this, and now you look like this. Well, Liam, you can look on my Instagram page and you can see pictures down at the bottom that I am essentially about the same exact size I was 20 years ago, right? I've maintained enough muscle over time doing it the right way that I haven't lost a hell of a lot, right? And so bodybuilding, it was something for me that helped me not only gain confidence because I was not a very tall man, but also made me believe in myself, the things that I could achieve through those accomplishments from winning shows, building relationships and networking with some of my former competitors who are now some of my clients and some of my very good friends. And so, bodybuilding started off as a way for me to feel good about myself. And then once I began winning, was something for me to uh, show examples that you don't have to have all the best attributes in life still to be a champion, right? So that's kind of my message that bodybuilding has done for me. It gave me a lot of confidence because as a short man and a man who I feel is average looking, I felt like I had to get smarter. I had to have a great body. And this was something that helped me out with that, to the point now I felt, hey, there's other attributes other than how you look. But for me, it was something that was important when I was younger to really help me overcome some of those psychological issues that I had with myself. And so, and then moving on to becoming a professional, again, it was just the love for bodybuilding. And I wanted to achieve another goal, so turning pro was just another, goal for me. I never thought it would bring the byproducts of success that it has, meaning, being able to have a good life and be able to share my experience with some of my clients. And so I wear a lot of hats because of bodybuilding. And so, but it started off really, to be very transparent, is helping build the confidence within myself.
Wow, I love that. I mean, I love the transparency. I love the honesty. I try and keep it very real on this show. And that's also, by the way, something that really stood out to me on your
Mhm.
Instagram. Your general social media presence is just a very down to earth, obviously very humble. I mean that kind of goes without saying. But you just have a very positive sort of aura about you anyway, and I can tell that you really want to help people with this. That comes over. So I'd like to just touch on that as well. I mean, people out there who are struggling with those kinds of insecurities, inadequacies, whatever term you'd like to use for it. I think it's very important to touch on something very important you said there. There's more to it than how you look. I mean, when I'm sitting with you
Mhm.
now, you're very enjoyable to talk with. I mean, we've only just met just now, but I feel like, we could talk about anything and you've got a very
Sure.
positive aura. And obviously that connects with the sales side of things, which we'll come into.
Mhm.
What advice would you give for people who are struggling? If you're almost like talking to your younger self now, in the form of some people listening to this, to kind of overcome some of those kind of issues.
I think first is is being willing to know that you're not okay. It's and understanding in that space that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay, right? You're not a robot, right? You're not programmed to be okay all the time, right?
Mm,
But we look at social media and society to dictate how we're supposed to feel, how we're supposed to look, right? And I tell people all the time, when I was going through those opportunities in my youth with my self-esteem, here's the funny thing, Liam. As an adult, my peers from my youth looked at me different than I looked at myself.
mhm.
Oh, the girls loved you. I said, I didn't think of one person liked me. I was short. I had big ears. Nobody paid attention to me. I was skinny. Hey, nobody liked me. But the whole time, all these people thought differently of what I thought of myself. So in that, excuse me, is accepting and knowing that it's okay to be not okay. But sometimes it's about stop comparing yourself to other people and be the best version of yourself. And that's one of the things I got out of the bodybuilding. I looked at these guys and I knew I wasn't going to look like them for a number of reasons, Liam. I wasn't going to take the amount of drugs that they were taking. I wasn't willing to do the things they were willing to do. Right. And when I was coming up, insulin was a big thing when it first started. So I wasn't going to do that. So I had to kind of find out what I wanted for me. Right. And part of that was identifying what was important to me at that time. Image was very important to me, but what image? Right. And then number two for me was a sustainable image. I don't want to look like this now and not look like this later. So that's why I get so much of a following is because they go, there, you're 50 plus and you still look like this. Well, why is that such an anomaly? It's because we don't challenge ourselves to be that great. Meaning, I challenge myself to do one thing, Liam. And this goes back to your question to those individuals. Be the best version of yourself, not his, not hers. Be the best version of yourself. And when I learned to understand that about me, one, it got easier. It was less stress on me. I felt better about life. I felt better about me, right? And so when you start feeling better about you, it's easier to permeate that same energy to people around you. So now you find that all of a sudden people start talking to you, people start coming around you, and you start finding more opportunities in life because you found yourself.
I
And
love that.
so I hope that answers your question.
Very much, very much. I mean, it's fantastic. These are the kinds of lessons I love to share, and that is such a valuable one. Because, by the way, Vernon, before we go any further, I've interviewed bodybuilders before, obviously, but I move around different sports, and I don't claim to be a bodybuilding expert by any means, and keeping it real. So, when you're talking about the sort of insecurity and the self-improvement side of things, it's fascinating to hear that because I always wondered how much of a part that plays, and some people are more open about it than others. But anyway, coming to another question. Obviously, you've been very successful in bodybuilding, but you've also been very successful in sales. I have come across that during my research as well. So, your definition of success as well, I'd imagine, will have evolved over time. Firstly, because, well, a few things. You've been very consistent over doing this for a long time. You've been successful in more than one industry. And going back to what you were saying earlier as well, your definition of success now sounds different than what it was then because of
Sure.
what we were just talking about, the fact there's other things in the looks and all of the things you just said. So, big question, but I think a cool topic for people. How do you define success in life now versus at the beginning of your journey in bodybuilding or in life,
Oh,
basically?
that's an amazing question, Liam. And I'm gonna tell you, it's very easy for me to answer.
Okay.
When I was younger, I grew up in Compton, California. So I don't know if you know much about the states, but Compton is where Boys in the Hood and Ice Cubes and the gang banging started and all that. I grew up there, right? So coming out of those environments, when I was younger, money was the epitome of success because we never had it. Okay. Liam, I'm gonna be very transparent. When I went through high school, I had holes in the bottom of my shoes at times, right? Senior year, right? To a point where, I have over 70 pair of shoes in my closet now because I have a fetish because of my mindset, because I had holes in the bottom of my shoes, right? So I always chased money. It got to a point in life where I had to ask myself a simple question. What do I want to be known as? Do you see where I keep going back to me, right? What do I want to be known as? Not what you think about me. So if you ask me today, Vernon, what is your purpose today? What is your success today? Is helping people maximize their potential. That is success for me today. How many people can I touch today to help change their life with nothing in return from me? Now, I'm not talking about a person who needs me to uh, do a meal plan for them or workout. I'm talking about a person who needs a kind word. I'm talking about a person who needs some direction. I'm talking about a person, and I'm not talking about just children. I'm talking about a guy I met in the store who just lost his eyesight. And by the time we finished having a conversation for 10 minutes of this total stranger, he hugs me and says, "Thank you. I needed to see you today." That is success to me. How do we touch people around us just to help them get past that moment that's keeping them down? And how do we do it in a way that is so authentic that people want to do it for other people? That is what success is for me today. Because here's the thing I start thinking about, Liam. I look at a lot of rich people killing themselves. So money ain't that great. It's only great to people who ain't never had it, right?
Mm.
Why do you think you see wealthy people go do things that don't make a lot of money, right? I've never been wealthy. I've been okay, right? But my point I'm making is when I got to a point that purpose in life was more important than paper,
Yeah.
then life changed for me. It really had meaning. I felt wealthier than I ever have in my life, and I make less money than I did before. It's because I touch more people genuinely because I want to truly help people. Because I don't know everything, but I know a lot about a lot of things. A little bit, I should say, about a lot of things. And that little bit might be able to just turn the screw to help you think about something differently to get you past that path. So to sum this up, wealth to me is the ability to be able to touch people in a positive way that will allow them a positive return on that conversation or interaction. That's success for me.
That's a beautiful answer, man. I mean, that's incredible. And to be honest with you, as I've said before, that's really the vibe that I got from you. Because by the way, I mean, you probably get the gist of this by now from me anyway. But when I get people on the show, people can have accomplished the most amazing things. But if they just want to sit here and talk about how great they are, how great they think they are, then I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I mean, it doesn't matter, even it doesn't matter about how many views it's going to get or anything like this. I mean, they've got to have that message about giving something back. And what you're saying, the brutal honesty. By the way, I massively respect the brutal honesty about your life because it takes courage also to put that out there. Now, just so this bit doesn't slip my mind as well, there's also another interesting kind of connection I can see here because sales requires a lot of self development and self improvement
Mhm,
as well, as you know
mhm,
all too well, as does the military life. So, one of the things I'm also thinking here as I'm sitting here, I think is very interesting is you improve yourself through bodybuilding, but also, I mean, you would have challenged yourself and grown a lot through those other two as well, and maybe
mhm,
more things than even that. So, I'm curious to go behind that just for a moment and talk about the mindset of continuous growth and continuous improvement because we've mentioned the bodybuilding specifically and how that improved you, but how does it connect to the other two? Because you've chosen three things in life to do with your time, full time, that require
mhm.
you maximizing your potential, as you were saying, you like to help others do. So I'd like to go a bit deeper into that connection with the three, if that makes sense, if you get where I'm going with this one.
Sure, absolutely. So here's what I've learned over time, right? So here's part of what people don't know, and again, this yes, I am tooting my own horn because again, I tell you, I come from a very destitute place where education and wealth was not there. I have an MBA now, right? And so as I took myself through these steps to become more educated, I understood that when I was in school, they didn't teach me anything. They taught me a bunch of principles. What I had to learn that transcends these three different uh, uh, situations, whether it be my position as a professional, my bodybuilding career, my military career, was everything surrounds people, right?
Mm.
And there was a point in my life before that I didn't understand this. I was a director. I always say, be a teacher, don't be a teller, right? Be a teacher, don't be a teller. So I understood that in order for me to achieve the goals I wanted, I have to learn how to put people's needs, desires, and wants before mine. And that was very difficult because I come from a very selfish place. I never had anything. Now all of a sudden I have stuff. And you mean to tell me now I got to think about you? Right?
Yeah.
So then I had to realize that, wait a minute, I got this all screwed up. If I think about them first and I make sure they eat, my plate will eventually always be full. And so in all three of those spaces, I've learned to put other people first. Never forgetting about me, my dreams, my goals, but understanding in order to achieve them, sometimes the 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 quickest path to success is through the relationship and the support of others and not yourself. Now, it takes you to become very unselfish to get to this point because it's a very unselfish point. Because in many of these spaces, the outcome is not going to be what you want. The people are not going to respond the way you want them to. So, how do you stay consistent on this purpose? And so, it really has to be ingrained in you. So, how do I get to that point? Well, it's because I've seen examples of what I didn't want, what I didn't like, and I refuse to repeat those things. Also, it's been more important for me for people walk away from any interaction with me in a positive setting, meaning they got something from me. So I start making my life, again, goes back to my purpose now, about other people, not about me. Now, again, I have my dreams, my goals, just like anybody else. I am human. I have still my selfish ways, but I have learned and I've made a conscious decision to understand that the more I make it about them, the more it becomes about me,
Mm.
right? I get my goals. I get what I want just by being unselfish. And so I've learned that because it fit in every single one of the roles I've been in. When I've gone into the business and I've been the hard charger and it would get to great numbers, then I lose people, right? I go into bodybuilding and I'm just, I'm all jacked up and I don't concentrate on conditioning, symmetry and proportion, and then I lose to a guy who did, right? Or then I go over here to uh, my when I was a 19-year-old sergeant in the Army, and I'm looking at my peers, and I'm going, well, they're lost, and they're looking at me like they just is. You're in a position of authority and promotion at a very young age, so the peers you come with are thinking and looking at you a certain way, right? So I can take the position, I'm the boss, you do what I say, don't care. Instead, I took the position of helping them understand that there was no favoritism here. I outworked you, but let me teach you how that looks. Let me show you the way that looks. Let me show you how to get that promotion for yourself. Then what happened there is this team that I'm trying to build, who has some resentment because of my position now, starts to understand, wow, he just worked harder than us. He just outworked us to get there. And if I want it, this is what I have to do, opposed to just being that person who has it. You sit on this sideline, I'm over here now, we're different. No, we're not. We just got opportunity at two different time periods. And if I spend the time with these individuals in the military, to teach them what they need to know to get what I have or what they envy or appear to think they want, then it's still going to play out right for me because I build a better team, I build better relationships, and I pour it into someone else who can eventually pour into someone else. So the chain is continuing. So now, hopefully in the future, that next person doesn't look at the person with the promotion or anything like that as a negative. They look at it as a positive and they reach out for support opposed to sit back and being envious.
Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. I love that as well, the ripple effect of that concept. But I mean,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of lessons. You said before about leading with value and about people getting, gaining basically in one way or another from their time with you. And I would also say, by the way, Vernon, that personally I'm gaining immensely. Even now, I'm going to be taking some notes on this.
Appreciate that.
No, I do really mean that, by the way, because I mean, hey, I learn too, and I do like what you're saying. I do this to give, to share the wisdom from people who've done great things as you have, but at the same time, I learn as well. And I'm learning more in this one than average. So if you see me sort of listening and I probably look, a bit blank, it's actually because I'm taking it in because I'm thinking, wow, there's this lesson, this lesson, this lesson, even contained in each answer. So I think that's fantastic. Anyway, but yeah, great lessons there, connectivity. Now, I also don't want to slip my mind about the consistency as well, because I'm thinking ahead of a few other things. But I don't want to overlook the concept of consistency only because it might seem fairly obvious from a perspective. But going back to what you said earlier, I think that's also a massive part of your success, your inspiration, your lesson is the fact that you've touched on several times. You've never shortcutted any of this. You've always had the self respect to do it the right way, but you've also stayed at a high level for a very long time, not only in bodybuilding, but with the sales side of things as well, with the army. I mean, your life has been like that. And you see a lot of people, especially these days, who kind of hit a level, obviously, and they sit back, they think, well, I've got there now, and they stop doing what they did to get where they are, so then they don't really stay in the same place and they go,
Mhm,
unfortunately, backslide. But you've
mhm.
obviously avoided that for a long time. I think that is a valuable lesson as well, is the lesson of consistency, how you do that, how you stay at the top of your game, and how you don't get complacent or any of that kind of thing. Because whether it's bodybuilding or whether it's something completely different, whatever people are doing, I think there's a really valuable lesson there they can take away.
Well, one of the things I look at, when you talk about consistency, you know, I don't look at consistency as most people do. Is I haven't bodybuilded consistent. I
Mm,
haven't been the best leader consistently. I wasn't the best soldier consistently. The difference is I've always wanted to be better because I knew I could,
mm,
right? I didn't want to leave anything. I don't want to go through life, Liam, saying what if. So I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I'm being very transparent here.
mm,
I was a high school wrestler and I was very good. I think my last year I was like 14 wins, 3 losses or something like that. So I wasn't great, but I was pretty dang good. And the last person who beat me, I was facing him in conference championship. And I didn't go to school that day because I was afraid.
mm.
I was afraid to wrestle him. And that lives with me to this day. To this day, Liam, could I have beat him?
Okay. Wow.
So to answer your questions, I think we have to always go to a place of not wanting to have to say what if
Mm,
with things that you can control. See, I could control that narrative by going to wrestle and win, lose, or draw. I
mm,
went, I know where I stand. But because I didn't, I live with a scar for over 30 years,
right.
right?
Mm,
I don't want that scar no more, right? So that keeps me consistent. So sometimes it takes something that you went through to keep you consistent, right?
mm,
What people don't know, part of what keeps me consistent is bodybuilding is taking off 1 month every single day of my life. I'm Every year, 1 month, I take off from bodybuilding. I don't look at the gym because it allows me to understand that there's more in life than the gym.
Mm,
It also gives my body time to rest, repair, and always come back better because
mm,
I miss it, right? When it comes to my career, again, what keeps me consistent is I come from nothing
mm,
to almost something. I'm not going to give that up.
mm,
And then, more importantly, every day I interact with someone, they get a little bit of me. I help them a little bit more to not bump their hair or scrape their knees as much as I did coming up. So that in itself allows me to say, yes, I'm doing something right. I need to keep going. But for the most part, Liam, I don't want to live in regret.
mm,
And as you get older, you start asking yourself, as we spoke about, what's more, what's value to you now? What's wealth creation now? What are all these successes now? And for success for me is how do I stay consistent? Because that's who I am now.
yeah,
Because to me, if you're not consistent, that's not who you are. You're just doing something to appease something.
mhm,
Consistency is who you are, right? It's not what you do. But there could be reasonings, as I told you, the wrestling, the fear of failure, the wanting to pour into other people is what keeps me success. So it could be a number of things that work for an individual, but for me, it was fear
mm,
that I had as youth to wrestle someone that I never have that fear again. Number two, it's being poor. So I get my butt up and I go work hard and I do what I have to do. And even the medial jobs I've had spaces, Liam, where, I worked for an organization as a vice president and the organization went to heck. And I had to do things I didn't want to do because I have an MBA,
yeah,
right? But I did them
mm,
because it's who I am. That's the consistency. And so if I had to give anyone some advice, I say, find the things in you that you do well and you like to do and make that consistent and build off of that. But whatever you do, don't do things to make others think or feel you're consistent with those behaviors, attitudes, or whatever the case may be, because you're not being true to yourself. To me, consistency is being true to you. That's when you got to go look in the mirror and you're going to make everybody think you brush your teeth every morning. If you don't,
yeah.
right?
I love that. Absolutely. I mean, that's something I always say. As by the way, when we talk about definitions of success, that's one of mine. Is who you become, not as you say, not what you have or what you do or all of these things. And I can see the continuation of that with from some of the other subjects we spoke about earlier. And yeah, who you've become as the man you are today is
Now, let me just interject something. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
it's fun.
that is so true. But you also have to recognize how and why you became what you are today. You didn't
Okay.
change because the other life was great. You don't just change because you get older. I got a lot of friends that still act like they did 20 years ago, right?
Mhm.
You have to ask yourself, what was the defining moment? What was that thing that got you to say, I can be better, I want to be better, and I'm going to be better?
Mm,
What was that? And then hold on to that. Because if you hold on to that, you will always have that. And then the reason that's so important, Liam, because in other aspects of your life, you may have to teach yourself that same consistent pattern. But if you got a blueprint, it may not, you know, correlate exactly. It may not run symmetrically with the other, but it still has reverence and presence to how you can do it, how you can make it happen. And so it's, if nothing else, it's a good source of resource for you when you want to better your life.
mm. That makes a lot of sense. I thought I really like that perspective on that actually. There's another thing you mentioned though, which I kind of pick up on, where you going back to just a minute ago what you were saying about the army and that time, and you also said something interesting where you said that words to the effect when you were showing those people how to get there, and you said, look, you outwork them, but let me show you what that looks like for you, etc. And you're going down that line. You also said to show people what they think they want, and you made reference to
Mhm,
the envy and some of that being a bit false. So when a person is aiming for success, how do they tell that it's coming from, if you like, an authentic place within them? Because this has also been the theme going all the way back to what you said at the beginning of this call about being the best version of yourself, not the best version of somebody else. How do people who are starting out on the journey tell if the success they're doing is really for them, it's really something from their soul, it's really something they want to do? I mean, there's always things we have to do as well. Don't get me wrong, but you know what I mean. That it's not almost somebody else's idea in a way. Because I've also seen that. I've seen a lot of people get to the supposed finish line. I mean, not that there really is one because it's a journey, as you said also at the beginning.
mhm,
But you get what I mean. They get there and they think, man, this isn't actually what I thought it was, and why am I
mhm,
here? And I never
mhm,
expected that. But over the years, I've also seen a lot of that. I've seen like, what am
mhm,
I doing here? This is like this was supposed to be the part of the goal at the end of the rainbow. It's not. So where am I? And they have to kind of figure out something else. Whereas with your ambitions and your achievements, I see a lot of authenticity there, actually
mhm.
evolved over time. I'd like to touch on that topic as well, and how people can find what's really them and grow it.
Well, this and that's an amazing question because I never thought myself as being a businessman. Uh, I wanted to be a physical therapist years ago, right?
Okay.
So I went through these classes and did everything and didn't like it, right? I went and worked for a dental office as an office manager, and I loved just the business. I just loved all the moving parts, and I love this. And so, to answer your question, number one, there is no perfect answer. I
Mm,
think people have to try things to find out what they want. So I give you an example. I have a son.
mm,
I have a couple of sons, but I'm talking about one particular twin boy I have. He dates, right? He's 18 now, right? So my son had a girlfriend for a while, and the girlfriend broke up with him, and things happened, and he was very hurt.
mm,
And then when he was, I said, "How do you know you even liked her?" And he said, "Well, she did this for me. She did this." I said, "Stop. How did you know you liked her?" You know what he says? "I didn't." And after we broke up, I realized I really didn't like her, right?
okay.
So I said to my son, and you're going to see where I'm going with this. Son, sometimes I'm not telling you to be intimate, but you have to experience different things to know what you want.
Mhm,
But the problem, Liam, is most people are afraid to try different things. They try the safe thing, and the safe thing doesn't work out. Then they think I wasted time. No, what you did was you refused to challenge yourself to things that were uncomfortable,
mm,
right? So how did I know I liked bodybuilding? Is because I tried it. But I tried football and I hated it. I tried baseball and I hated it. And I realized, Liam, that every individual sport I love, boxing, wrestling, martial arts. Wow, I like individual sports. I don't like team sports. Now, why do I like individual sports? Because I like to be responsible for my success or failure. I like that challenge that I did it, right?
yeah.
See? So to answer that question, I truly believe that not in a reckless sense, but in a calculated sense, that people have to try to find what they want. And then going back to my son, I told him to date, not to sleep with women, to find out what you like and what you don't like,
Mm,
right? You may think you like uh, blonde, blue eyes, and you meet a woman who's brunette with brown eyes, and you just like, wow, I never seen that before. That's amazing. Because that's all you was exposed to. That's all you had access to.
Yeah.
And sometimes we start going down a path to things based on access, not necessarily because we want it. Going back to what I said earlier, it's an easier path.
Mm.
That easier path keeps us from prolongs our destiny many times because it's easy.
Yeah.
People have to be willing to challenge themselves to things that make them uncomfortable. And don't be afraid to try things that may seem a little bit off, because that might just be your thing.
Mm.
And I think that's the best way to go about it, because that's what I did. I didn't walk into this successful. I told you, I played baseball. I was absolutely horrendous at it, right? I was horrendous at baseball. I think I was so bad at baseball, they took my uniform from me. Give me that back. I sucked. So I think that you have to really sit back and ask yourself a simple question. You know, am I willing to try the things to find out what I really like in life? And then when I do find out what that is, what am I willing to do and how far do I want? Because Liam, see, we confuse things sometimes and think that everybody want to be successful. Everybody does not.
Yeah. That's true.
Everybody likes the idea of success. And the reason I say that, because if you really want to be successful, you do the things that have a byproduct of success. Most people don't do it. Why? Because they really don't care about success that much. They want the image of success. People who are successful, they want the feeling of success.
Yeah.
See, we enjoy the journey, not the end result. See, I have a saying I always say, success is a never-ending tunnel.
Yeah.
It's never ending. It has milestone after milestone after milestone after milestone after milestone. And when you reach to a milestone, you praise and put your hands down and keep going. Because that's all time you got is that much to go, yay, and come back down. Because that's what success is. Because there's something next coming.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm with you on that. I mean, and I always say to people as well that you have to love the process because I mean people say, "Oh, you've got to love the process," but the process is where you spend your time. I mean, that's where you live. So I totally get what you're saying with that. So another thing, though, I mean, when we're talking about the future and everything like this, do you think you're going to be one of those guys, when you're like, say, 85 years old or something, you're still going to be competing, or you're still going to be in the gym, you're still going to be on the stage? I know that it's an evolution, so you've got the sales and you've got the other stuff, but I mean, for you as well, the other thing, by the way, that I really like is the concept of age being, pretty much a number. And I know it sounds cliche. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean, because you found what you love and because you
Mhm.
evolved what you love, then again, it sounds cliche, doesn't it? But you're doing what you love, and so therefore age does become just a number. I mean, do you think you're still going to be up there like 20 years from now, 30 years from now?
I,
God
I
willing?
will compete as long as whatever category I'm in, I can be competitive, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. And because here's the thing, too. Part of success is having courage. And
mm,
part of courage is being able to say, I can't do it anymore. See, that ego is a beast. That
yeah,
ego's a beast, right? And especially as a bodybuilder, you got to think about how vain we are. We get up on stage almost naked and say, judge me, I'm the best. Think about that. Think about the mindset you got to have. It's a little cuckoo too, right? It can be a little bit cuckoo, just a little bit, right? That you
yeah,
want to get on stage. Think about this. Just think about us as human beings. We
yeah,
don't like being judged, right? But I'm going to take off all my clothes and I'm going to get on stage in front of strangers and I'm going to say, judge me,
yeah,
right? Now, you take that thought process. I'm going to have that till I die. I will be in the gym till I die. I don't care if it's on a bicycle only because I know what it does for me. For
mhm,
me. But when you talk about competing as a competitor, I don't like losing.
mhm,
And I don't compete just to compete. That's why when I do compete, I put so much pressure on me. I announce it. I do all these things so people are looking. So I got to be my best. I purposely do that,
mhm.
right? And I believe that's why I've had so much success because I put so much pressure on myself because I know people looking. right?
Right.
And I got to deliver. I've been talking all this mess for 3.5 months. I got to win. Or if you beat me, you got to be that awesome. Now, as I get older, I still want to have that same hunger, but
Mhm.
it has to be to a point where I can be competitive. I don't have to win everything, but I got to be able to say in this space and time, whether it be my age, I have to be able to look like I belong there.
Absolutely.
The point I get to where I can't look like I belong there, then I want to keep trying to get other people there. Because again, it goes back to my purpose, helping people maximize their potential, right?
Mhm.
So my purpose still can be met if I'm not on stage. So that will be successful to me. But to direct answer to the question is summing all this up is as long as I can step on that stage and be competitive, I'm gonna step on that stage.
That's awesome. I mean, I love it. Absolutely. I mean, that also shows people as well. I was thinking when I asked that, you've got to show people more about the journey and not just the destination. But I do want to ask you as well, though, even though we're talking about the purpose for other people and we're talking about all these things, people will want to know, listening to this, about your proudest moments as a bodybuilder, and
Mhm.
obviously the IFBB, the Pro, the Classic, and all these things I mentioned at the beginning. But I love asking this question because a lot of times when I ask this question, not to lead the witness here, but it's not often the ones that you think it's going to be that are their favorites. So I'd like to also just ask you that, which ones are your favorite competitions and your proudest moments, basically.
I had two, and they tied together.
Mm.
Uh, in 2010, I did the Mr. Kentucky. I was open middleweight. I'm open bodybuilder in the middleweight class, and I did the Masters. I was 40 at the time, I believe it was. Yeah, and I did the. I was 40 something, and I hadn't competed at that time in 10 years. My last show was 2000 and was 2000 and something like that, and I wind up competing again in, I want to get it right, 2008. And so I was training with a trainer, and he was a super heavyweight, and he told me, he says, I'm going to win the overall in the show, and you might win your class. I won the open middleweight, the open overall, and the masters overall in the same show. Very proud moment because that was the first time I did my own diet, my own training, and I beat everybody. And it was a big show. And the second would be the Masters Nationals, because again, at that time, I had not competed for 10 years, hadn't stepped on stage, was barely training, was focused on my career. And this show was in July, and I decided that March that I was going to win the show. And I went in and I won the entire show. And that taught me that when I put my mind to something, it's very little that I'm not going to accomplish. So those were better not for the wins, but what it taught me about myself. What it
Mhm.
taught me that I'm not inferior, but to my own self. I'm not less than, but to my own dreams. I'm
Mhm.
not uh, uh, inferior, but to my own drive.
Absolutely.
And once I learned that, then I feel like there's nothing I can't accomplish.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that is awesome. That is something I'm loving about this whole thing, the inner journey, I mean, the growth inside of you. And yeah, I mean, the realism, even going back to what you said earlier about when you stand on stage and, you're saying people judge me. And, I mean, I have thought of that. I thought, wow, I mean, that is something. Also, you said earlier about the wrestling thing, though, and you said about that time where, you still carry the scar and, all of this stuff. When you're competing, do you get nervous before you go out on stage or, maybe in the day leading up to it? And if so, how do you handle it? Because I know that you love it, but at the same time, going back to what you said, they're standing up there and saying, judge me like in a lot of ways. You're saying to people, look, pick me apart, because they're looking at you saying, right, okay, we've got to match up all of these things. That's daunting. So if you feel any nerves before that aspect, how do you handle that mentally and emotionally and spiritually?
I'm gonna give you that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. I'm gonna give you a quick example. When I was young, my very first contest I did was in Munich, Germany. Okay, I was in the army. I was in Darmstadt, Germany at the time. I was on stage, my very first contest, and I was so nervous that my legs were physically shaking like this.
Yeah.
Physically. I took third place, right? I didn't smile. After that, I went and did some shows once I got stateside, and I met a gentleman who taught me how to present myself. So first thing he made me do is go look in the mirror 20, 30 minutes a day and just smile in the mirror. And it was the weirdest thing in the world. Okay? Just smile. Then he taught me to sit and stand. He'd stand me the way he wanted me on stage, and he just make me stay there in that spot. Those things brought me confidence on how to present myself. But every single show, I am scared to death of what they're going to think about me.
Mm-hmm.
Every show.
Okay.
I don't care. I stepped on stage, 3.7% body fat. I knew I was the best conditioned guy there. I knew I have great symmetry and proportions, but I was nervous, man. Because here's the thing. It wasn't necessarily was I going to be in shape. I knew I was in shape. We all search for validation from something or someone. And when you stand on stage in front of strangers, you're searching for validation.
Mm.
Am I crazy? Do they see what I see or not? And when they don't, here's even more equal that we don't talk about. How do we handle that?
Mm.
How do we handle the quote unquote rejection after 3.5 months of preparation? Do we go quit? Do we get angry? Do we throw things? Do we not speak to people? What do we do? And so, yes, I get nervous every single show because part of me is that little kid that wants to be validated.
Mm.
I still have that child in me that wants people to say you did a good job. Absolutely. And I think sometimes for me, it's what humbles me to understand that no matter what titles I've won or what titles has been bestowed upon me because of the positions I've held, I still have the little kid in me that wants to be validated by my teams that I oversee, by my customers, by my friends, by anybody I interact with. If I walk down and somebody says, "Oh, you have a nice outfit on," but when I put it on, I hoped it was a nice outfit, but I wasn't sure until you told me that, right? Right.
Absolutely.
So yes, it's always there, man.
Wow. I mean, you see, that is something people don't see, and I like to touch on the things that people don't see. And by the way, seeing as we're on the subject of that, I do love the color, by the way, of what you're wearing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Omega Sci-Fi, my fraternity. Yes, sir.
I can
Yeah,
see
Omega
that.
Sci-Fi.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that. Absolutely. But okay. Now, a couple of other things, because I mean, we've gone a little bit more than the time I've said. So, a couple of
Sure.
other things, two or
No
three.
problem.
But I'm really really enjoying this. So we'll see what else. Now you did say about the beginning as well, and I don't want to overlook this. You did say about unpacking a couple of things about the bodybuilding kind of industry as well
Sure.
from the business side of bodybuilding, and I'd like to touch on that in terms of, you said at the beginning about pros and cons, especially from the point of view of things that people don't know when they're getting in, because there's bound to
Hmm.
be some things. And like I said, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, so you'll have to tell me. But at the same time, I know from everything else in life, when you get into something, there's the way you think it's going to be, there's the way it actually is. There's this kind of usually a space in between. And so with this, I mean, obviously you've achieved a lot of your dreams, you've done some amazing things, but going back to what you were saying there, I would like to focus on the misconceptions, the misunderstandings, and to some extent, the things you've learned from negative experiences as well, because you were saying there about like when you lose or when a competition doesn't go well, how you handle that, and that kind of got me to thinking, okay, yeah, with the obstacles and with things people don't know about bodybuilding as a business, especially for people starting out who are kind of wanting to get into this, what would you say about that, things that the public basically doesn't know about or is not common knowledge?
Well, that's another great question, and one that I love to address. First of all, I tell people go into bodybuilding because you love bodybuilding. Because if you go into bodybuilding and think you're going to get rich, you are totally misled. There, here's the statistically, since the inception of bodybuilding, people who've made $1 million from bodybuilding, you can count on two hands. Since its inception from bodybuilding. Okay. So it tells you right there, bodybuilding, you're not going to make any money. That's the number one misconception. Think about it. You see the same people in the same magazines, on the same blogs, the same exact people. You have your top echelon, and they're the only ones because they're willing to take the risk on their health to get there.
Mhm.
Okay. Doesn't mean that other people don't have that ability. They're just unwilling to take the risk. Some other people have better genetics. They just don't willing to take the risk, right? We can use one of my very, very favorite bodybuilders in space as far as risk and look at Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman had a beautiful physique as a natural bodybuilder. He kept taking 15th and 16th. The moment he started taking PEDs at a higher level and still lifting those heavy, heavy weights, he became Mr. Olympia, right? But you got to be willing to take those sacrifices. Number two, bodybuilding is one of the only sports that no one's going to come sign you a contract until you've already proven yourself. See, you got to already win the championship before they want you.
Yeah.
Right? Every other sport has some kind of secondary league to prepare you for the league. Right?
Yeah.
Not bodybuilding. Right? Not at all. Even boxing. Right? Even boxers get signed to contracts from promoters because they see talent. So you see this bodybuilder has all this talent. You're not going to do anything for him until he becomes big. And then you say, okay, now I want to sign you.
Yeah.
It's one of the few sports like that. And then thirdly is the misconception that you have to take a lot of drugs to be successful as a body.
Mhm.
Now, to be very transparent, if you're going to compete in some organizations, what I'm not going to name, you have to take them to be competitive.
Mm.
Period. Period. And anybody who's winning saying they're not, they're lying.
Sure.
They're lying. We all have done it. It just depends on at what levels did you do it at.
Mhm.
Because people can argue, I can argue that, what are you talking about? You see wellness businesses all over Florida where I live. What do you think those for? Bodybuilders or regular people? Regular people are utilizing PEDs for wellness. They just don't give them over 250 milligrams a week. Right?
Right.
So you can't say it's the drug. It's the abuse of the drug that's the problem in bodybuilding.
Mhm.
It's thinking that the more I take, the bigger you're going to get. That's not true. That's not even a true statement. Because if anybody knows anything about your physical makeup, your body is only going to accept and retain only so much of everything, even your food. Right? So it's not, the more you take doesn't work like that. It has a lot to do with genetics. It has a lot to do with, yes, your protocol, but also your nutrition, your training. There's so many things that what I call is pieces to this puzzle or this pie, which is your nutrition, your training, your rest, and then your supplements.
Mm.
That pie has to be complete, and it has to make sense to your body in order for your body to maximize its potential. But those three things I think is a really misconception. So I tell people, even people that I work with, and they say, "Man, I want to be a pro," and I say, "Why? Why do you want to be a pro?" Because there's no money in it. There's no money in being a pro. There's not. You
Yeah.
you don't see these guys with no big houses.
Mm.
And what happens to most of them afterwards? They become personal trainers because that's all they have. Because they spend 10, 15 years of their life bodybuilding.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with being a personal trainer. But if you want to be a professional bodybuilder, it's one thing. I got buddies who do the same thing I do, but they do it full time and they make a boatload of money training, nutrition, and does so on and so forth. But think about you going to want to be a professional, and all you have left is this. This is your default.
Yeah.
That's majority of bodybuilders. That's not what the going back to what we spoke about earlier. That was not the outcome they were looking for. Even
Mm.
after bodybuilding, that was not the outcome they were looking for, right?
Yeah.
So you have to walk into it with the love of the sport and something bigger than just making a career and making money. Because you can turn pro. They're giving pro cards out like candy,
Mm.
right? But this is the reason why certain organizations said, if you don't sign up now, we're going to cancel your pro status and you got to start all over again,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so easy to get it. No one's doing anything with it. Why aren't they doing anything with it? Because it costs more to get ready for a show than I'm going to get for prize money.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, people don't think of sports as a business often enough. First of all, so showing that side. But yeah, what you said there about the love. I mean, that is a big thing because I've seen it so many times. Where people, and you will have seen this more than me, but when people get to the top or not, but even when they do really well, it still doesn't quite meet the expectations if they're doing it to be famous and rich and all of this stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
you meet a lot of sort of bitter and disgruntled people afterwards. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
obviously, when they're doing it for the love, I mean, like the old adage of you do a job you love, you never have to work a day in your life. I mean, it's kind of true. I mean, obviously there is a lot of work and hardship, but the principle where you're doing it, I mean, it's like when I'm talking to you now. I mean, the sense of fulfillment and the happiness of the journey and the sense of sort of inner peace and those kind of things you can have. I mean, that is one thing I can tell. That you're happy with what you're doing and what
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
Doesn't mean it's perfect, but I mean happy in that sense of what we were talking about. Whereas you sit with some people, and believe me, and you would have seen this, but believe me, I've met
Mm-hmm.
them, and they have everything from a certain perspective. But the miserableness that just sort of exudes
Mm-hmm.
off those people, and not being of service as well. That's a good part of it. Going back to what you said earlier, doing everything just for themselves. But I do think there's a generation gap there where people of your generation were doing things more for the love, and because of social media now, on the one hand, it's good because you have more access to going back to what we said earlier, trying different things, and you can sort of see different ideas. But at the same time, I think a lot of people then look at that and think, okay, this is a quick fix. This is something I can do to get sort of ahead in life. But it's not. I'm not doing it for the love, and I see more of that in the present day. Not everybody, but you know,
But that's a very fair statement because that is so true because it's not just that, but we live a world of instant gratification.
yeah,
People want it now and but they don't think about the sustainable nature of things. How do you keep it going? They don't care. They want it for now. They want it for people to say, again, going back to everyone wants to be validated, right? And so you know we can always, one thing when we talk about those separations and especially generations, we always talk about, well, we just need to educate them. No, we don't. We need to understand them so that
mm,
we can help them make it more possible in the world they live in now. Okay. Because here's the thing, Liam. If I educate them, I'm still going to educate them from my thought process, ideology, and generation.
mm,
They're still not going to relate,
yeah,
right? And if they want to relate, it's not going to be sustainable to them, again, unless they find a personal value proposition to it. If I do this, what am I going to get back from it?
Mm.
Right? And so I argue that our responsibility in this generation is to understand them, not for them to understand us. And then how do we blend those things together? And the reason why is because they look at us as their parents, right?
Well, but
No,
both,
no. But listen, let me finish where I'm going with this. When I
yeah,
say as their parents is authority. You
yeah,
don't know what we're doing. You don't understand, Dad, Ma. But if I go into this with I want to learn about you,
mhm,
then I can teach you without you knowing you being taught because I understand how you think. I
100,
understand how you, right?
yeah, I'm
And
with you.
that's what I'm saying by that.
100%, I agree with that, and I definitely do think, by the way, with generations, I mean, really, there's a blending of the two. I mean, it's too big of a topic to talk about today, but
Yeah, right now.
simply put, my view is like, now they've got openness, and we've got a bunch of things of the sharing of ideas and promoting ourselves as a brand and all this stuff, which is cool. But then they've lost a lot of the more human, what I'm just going to broadly call human traits of the things we've been talking about here, which is part of the
Mm-hmm.
reason I'm so passionate about that kind of education, because we live in an era where, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of positives. I'm not knocking it. I would not want social media to be turned off or any of that stuff, but people will also kind of sell their souls more. And I do feel in your era, people were kind of more in tune with themselves, and it's just something I feel. It's a generalization, but it's a good topic. So I don't forget about that as well. One of the last things, just because this keeps coming into my head, the concept of integrity, and you're a person who has quite strong integrity from what I'm hearing, including what we've kind of touched on this as we went along, but even if we close out with this, I just wanted to touch on it real quick, because you've been saying about the people doing the drugs and doing all the things that they shouldn't do, and the sacrifices, and weighing up the sacrifices, and even Ronnie Coleman. I mean, I love the guy, absolutely love the guy, but like the training, and you see the way he is now
Mm-hmm.
with the walking and all of this. I'm not knocking him. I mean, he's a legend, but you look at the sacrifices people make, and look at you, and you kind of stayed on a better path in terms of the self-respect, in terms of respecting
Mm-hmm.
health, in terms of respecting,
Mm-hmm.
these kinds of things, and you haven't done all the drugs and all the crazy stuff. I mean, why is that, and how have you maintained that over 20 years as well? Because this will kind of connect to a few other things we talked about, but I just think it's something that really stands out to me from you. Is it's like
Mm-hmm.
going back to the looking in the mirror thing. You've stayed true to
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's been quite easy because I've seen drugs and alcohol and negative uh, environments and negative stimulants. I've seen what it does to you firsthand,
Mhm.
right? And I never wanted that for myself. Albeit, I've had bouts in my youth where I did the wrong things at the wrong times and ran into a lot of bad situations. But as I matured and start understanding myself, I didn't want to become what I despise.
That's powerful.
And that wasn't about being a hypocrite. I didn't want for me, I didn't want to go look in the mirror and be something that I hated
Mhm.
because I was on that road to. I was on the road to wanting to be 220 at 5'5". I was on the road to doing drugs, not hardcore drugs, but drugs in general, period. I was on a road just like any other experimental kid. But I realized in that space, in that mindset, in that environment, oh man, I'm gonna become what I despise, man. I'm gonna become what I hated growing up. And so it keeps me on the path. And and to be very honestly, and we can say maybe it's fear. I'm scared. I'm I'm scared to be that, right?
Mhm.
Because the fear doesn't come from just being that. It's that my children have to see what I see. My children have to experience what I experience. So what I'm not going to do is give them that. I'm
yeah,
not going to be the byproduct of that. They may see it out in this world. They ain't going to see it from me.
absolutely. I love that. I mean, that's a very powerful way to close out as well. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. I mean, it's one of my favorite quotes. But at the end of the day, even though we're talking today and we're sharing the message verbally, actually, it's by action. I mean, it's like with kids, isn't it? I mean, if what's the saying? Don't do what I say, but do what I do. Or was the effect? They won't do what you say; they do what
Exactly. Mm,
so when I was growing up, like I got all the respect in the world for my dad. We got the close relationship, but there's definitely times where he said, "Oh, don't do something," and you do it anyway. But then when they lead by example, you follow the example. So that, and not just with your kids as well, but even today, I hope that we put that message across where you're leading
sure.
by example, which is what I absolutely love about you. I'm going to say, because we've gone over the time and it's a good length for people to kind of take in some lessons from this without being too much. I am also going to say to our audience, guys, please follow Vernon on social media. I mean,
Absolutely.
out there. I found you on Instagram, but you're a pretty famous guy. I mean, you're very well known in terms of the sales and in terms of the bodybuilding. But can you just mention real quick where people can follow you if they're hearing it
Absolutely.
first time?
Absolutely. I prefer on my Instagram page is mature muscle. That's all one word. Underscore 50. Mature muscle underscore 50. If for some reason you can't find it, look for Vernon, Vernon, Ervin, Ervin. And, shameless plug, I am open to clients. So if you're looking to, and I don't lock anyone into any contracts or anything like that, I do more of a carte blanche. If you just need this for this, we work out, take care of it, or I do full contest prep or full lifestyle prep. So just give me a holler, or if you just want to talk, if you just want some encouragement, you see my page. I try to do that. And Liam, that's why I decided to do this with you. Is I've been asked to do a number of podcasts. I turned down a majority of them. Uh, and I want to do this one because you're in another country, so I want to get the exposure, but also get your watchers and viewers the exposure to me. But also, I don't want to just talk bodybuilding. How do we maneuver through life and become better versions of ourselves, all the while providing service to our communities and to the people, and especially those who have no skin in the game, the ones we don't know. How do we help impact their lives in just a meeting? How do we help make people better? And trust me, when you start walking that walk in your life and just doing something kind and being nice, uh, it's a very fulfilling feeling that I have in just living life right now. Again, I say it all day long. I've been wealthier financially in my life. I'm not destitute by no means, but I am so much more wealthier now that I've impacted so many more lives. And so I hope that's what everyone gets from this. And I hope you reach out to me, and I'd greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned about the clients, by the way, because on a practical level, going back to your purpose, helping people become the best version of themselves, one way or another, is of immense value. But yeah, I mean, the wealth, what a way to close out the true meaning of wealth. And I love it because today we've had like the one side of the American dream, that's the positive side of the dream. But I'm going to say this, even if it's slightly controversial. Being an American person and having that relationship with money and having kind of grown through that is also a big thing. I don't say that with any
Sure.
judgment because I love America. It's a beautiful country.
Uh,
You know,
It is truth,
yeah.
right?
I mean,
And you said something earlier, Liam, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you said something earlier. We
yeah.
need, how do we bridge the gap to generations? You
Mm.
got to be honest, man.
Oh,
Everything ain't roses. You
yeah.
got to be honest. You got to talk about failures because people can relate to failures. You got to talk about what things didn't happen, what it didn't work out your way, right? Let's help people understand that it's okay. See, I always say it's okay to fail. It's not okay to stay in failure.
Oh, I
Okay.
love. Yeah, I
That's the
love.
difference. It's okay to fail. I look to fail. Think about it. How do you build muscle? You have to take the muscle to failure in order for it to build.
Yeah.
The same thing in life. You got to accept those failures in order to build that mental wealth. If you don't, then you're going to consistently just go into failure, into failure, into failure. Or you're going to run from it. And you're going to ask yourself, why ain't I never better? Because you're afraid to fail. I'm not. I look for it. I look for it and I welcome it.
I love
And I
that.
ask those that's listening to do the same.
Absolutely. The courage, that's been a massive takeaway, from for me
Yeah.
as well, of the way you face your fears. But anyway, my friend, thank you so much. Last couple of things. I will send you this when it's released as well. So I'll be promoting
Okay.
my side everywhere I can, and I'll be getting it out there.
Thank you.
Would be very grateful for a reshare as well, because that viewers thing, obviously that works two ways.
Sure. Absolutely.
And other than that, we'll keep in touch because I have a couple of other things in the pipeline that I'm doing with what I'm calling summits, where I basically bring people together in group inspiration type broadcasts. I'll talk to you more about that another time. There's one or two other things you might also enjoy and,
Absolutely.
mutually benefit from there. But anyway, in the meantime, my best wishes to you, your family. Have a great day. Obviously, you've got a lot more of it to go than I have this side. I can see the sun shining there, so I enjoy and yeah, I'll be in touch very soon. But thank you so much for sharing everything from your heart and for being such an open book. I mean, it's been an absolute joy. I mean, I knew it would be a good interview, but truly, it's exceeded my expectations.
Thank you, Liam.
Massive.
I appreciate you.
So a
And I
big
look forward to speaking to you again and doing other business with you in the future, man. I really do appreciate you. And I appreciate your audience. So I want to tell everyone, thank you. Again, mature muscle underscore 50. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. And I pray that every or someone got something out of this that can help you move forward in your life. I pray that you did. Thank you. And I appreciate your time, Liam.
Thank you. Appreciate yours as well. Take care. Bye now.
All
Bye bye.
right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.